Grind now, shine later.
Oh, yeah. That phrase was absolutely everywhere for a while.
For years, that felt like the unquestioned mantra, didn't it? Like echoing through boardrooms, definitely all over social media feeds.
Totally. Almost inescapable.
Right. From, Silicon Valley startups
Yeah.
to the really aspirational corners of TikTok, the message felt so clear. Relentless effort, pushing past your limits.
Sacrificing personal time.
Yeah.
That was key. It wasn't just presented as a path to success.
No, it was like the only path. It felt like this huge global race to the top,
Yeah, powered by sheer willpower and probably an unhealthy amount of coffee.
Totally.
Yeah.
But lately, well, something feels like it shifted. It feels, I don't know, seismic.
Like a collective exhale, maybe? People just couldn't sustain it?
That's a great way to put it. We're seeing this profound reevaluation, people questioning that intensity, looking for something different, softer, maybe.
Which leads us to this really fascinating, almost like existential question for right now.
Exactly. Is hustle culture really dead? Or are we just seeing it change, morph into something else, maybe even, I don't know, a new kind of pressure?
It's such a fundamental reevaluation, isn't it? Our whole relationship with work. And what's really striking, I think, and our sources really highlight this, is just how unsustainable those old ways became.
For so many people.
Yeah, a huge portion of the workforce, that constant push, that always-on mentality. It demanded everything.
It wasn't just tiring, it was more than that.
Oh, absolutely. It didn't just take a toll. It created this pervasive, I don't know, sense of dread, exhaustion. It just wasn't tenable long term.
And the speed at which public opinion seems to have flipped, from sort of glorifying it to quietly rejecting it.
It really shows the depth of that collective fatigue, I think.
Absolutely. And that collective exhaustion, that whole shift, that's exactly what we want to dive deep into today.
Yeah.
Our mission here is really to unpack this whole evolution,
Yeah.
our relationship with work, with ambition, but also with personal well-being.
Which often got left behind in the hustle era.
Totally. So we're going to trace the arc of hustle culture, what it actually was, how it got everywhere, and then really dig into the reasons why it seems to be declining so publicly.
And after that, we need to look at what's emerging. What are the alternatives? Especially this idea of the soft life that you hear so much about now.
Right. That intriguing, almost contradictory concept.
And it's really important, I think, to frame this right. Our goal isn't to sit here and judge one way as better than the other.
No, definitely not prescribing anything.
Exactly. It's more about dissecting these big cultural shifts, understanding where they came from, how they show up, what they actually mean.
And ultimately, what all this means for you, listening right now. How do you navigate this changing landscape? Hopefully we can give you some insights to do that with more intention, more self-awareness.
Yeah, aiming for those aha moments, trying to make sense of this new world of work without making it feel overwhelming. Just clear, engaging insights.
Okay, so to really grasp this shift, I think we absolutely have to start by getting a clear picture of what hustle culture actually was.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just a buzzword, was it?
Not at all. It really dominated for, the better part of a decade?
At least. And it evolved into this really pervasive mindset, a demanding lifestyle. For some people, you said it earlier, almost like a religion.
It really had that fervor, didn't it? It had its own sort of sacred texts, its gurus, its specific rituals.
Right, rituals is a good word for it.
At its absolute core, hustle culture was defined by this relentless, almost unyielding drive. It was the belief that you should be perpetually on.
Every single moment.
Every moment optimized for productivity, for getting ahead, for growth. Our sources describe it perfectly as that always working, always pushing, always on approach.
And the whole idea of rest, it wasn't just discouraged.
No, it was actively reframed, wasn't it, as a weakness, a luxury you couldn't afford, not, a basic biological need.
Right, it's like sleep when you're dead almost.
Pretty much. The underlying philosophy was all about maximizing output. Often, actually, usually, at the expense of everything else.
Like your well-being, relationships?
Even basic stuff like sleep, yeah. It was a philosophy that really confused activity with achievement. Like the sheer volume of effort was the only thing that mattered, the ultimate measure of success.
And you saw this play out in really specific, almost like you said, ritualistic ways in daily life. It wasn't some abstract idea.
Totally concrete.
Think about the classic 5 a.m. alarms. Those weren't just about waking up early.
No, they were a statement.
Exactly. People
Yeah.
boasted about them on social media, right? Screenshots of their early workouts or like first email sent before dawn. It was a badge of honor, a public announcement of your dedication.
And then the explosion of side hustles. That was another huge one.
Yeah. And it wasn't always just about needing the extra money, was it?
Sometimes, sure. But for many, taking on that second or third job, often alongside a demanding full-time career, it became proof. Proof of your ambition.
Proof you could always do more, always optimize more hours.
And coffee. Coffee stopped being just a drink.
It became fuel, a substitute for sleep, another symbol of pushing past your natural limits, another badge of honor.
And let's not forget the no days off attitude. That was like the ultimate flex.
Oh yeah, team no sleep, all that stuff.
I think.
It meant you were truly devoted, truly committed to the grind.
And these weren't just seen as quirky personal choices. They were celebrated, idolized almost, as the only real way to get that material wealth or climb the professional ladder.
It was presented as the clear path to the big house, the fancy car, the promotion.
What's really fascinating when you look back, and our research really brings this out, is that implicit philosophy behind it all.
Go on.
It wasn't just suggesting, it was basically preaching that constant grinding effort, pushing yourself to exhaustion, nonstop sacrifice, that this was the direct path, often the only path to what society defined as success.
And that success was very specific.
Very specific, almost always measured externally. Material things, like you said, the house, the car, designer stuff, or, the rapid climb up the corporate ladder, the promotion, the corner office, the C-suite title.
It was a very linear belief system, wasn't it? Work ridiculously hard.
And all these tangible markers of success would just inevitably follow. It was almost transactional, put in the pain, get the gain.
You can kind of see echoes of older ideas there too, right? Like the Protestant work ethic.
Absolutely. That idea of hard work as a moral good, a direct route to prosperity, but then it got supercharged.
By what? Silicon Valley.
Yeah, definitely influenced by that move fast and break things ethos, prioritizing speed, disruption above everything, which fed right into the idea that if you rested, you were falling behind, you were losing.
And speaking of things getting
Yeah.
supercharged, social media, its role in glamorizing all this was just massive. You really can't overstate it.
Oh, absolutely central. Platforms like Instagram, they weren't just passive platforms sharing moments. They were actively curating this aspirational narrative, almost like a visual sermon on the gospel of the grind.
You couldn't scroll for 5 minutes without seeing them, those motivational quotes plastered everywhere.
Sleep is for the weak. Always over some picture of a sunrise and someone already at their desk.
Or the classic, you have the same 24 hours as Elon Musk, usually next to a picture of someone working super late.
Right. And these weren't just occasional posts. They saturated the internet for like a decade. It created this constant visual, verbal reinforcement of the hustle mentality.
It built this echo chamber, didn't it? Where every success story seemed to start with some extreme story of deprivation and endless work.
Yeah, and that subtly pressured everyone else. If you weren't doing that, were you even trying?
You felt like you had to follow suit.
It really did become this influential era. People talk about the Gary Vee era, right?
Yeah, he's often cited as a key figure.
And he's a really prominent example of how certain personalities, certain kinds of messaging helped normalize and even actively glamorize this relentless pursuit.
His energy was infectious, you have to admit.
Totally. High energy, urgent. His message was all about putting in the work. Every day. No excuses, no hesitation. He really championed this hyper-aggressive style of digital entrepreneurship.
Which demanded constant availability, constant output.
Exactly. And the effect wasn't just about individual ambition. It wasn't just a personal choice anymore. It created this really pervasive societal pressure.
Yeah, if you weren't constantly doing more, optimizing more, posting about your grind.
You felt like you were falling behind, like you weren't dedicated enough. It fostered this deeply competitive vibe.
Where the only acceptable gear was more.
Yeah, leading to this sort of silent race to the bottom in terms of well-being as everyone tried to out-hustle everyone else.
Right, yeah, this is a big but.
Mm-hmm.
There were huge hidden costs. Things that weren't really talked about initially. This is where the shine really started to come off the whole thing.
Definitely. The personal toll was immense. often devastating, actually, far outweighing the promised rewards for many people.
We're talking widespread burnout, right?
Yeah.
And not just feeling a bit tired.
No, this was profound, debilitating exhaustion. Our sources describe it seeping into every part of life, leaving people feeling depleted, cynical, ineffective, even if they were technically achieving things.
It wasn't just weekend fatigue, it was soul-crushing.
Exactly. And anxiety. That became like a constant companion for so many, fueled by the pressure to perform, the fear of not measuring up.
The constant awareness that someone else might be hustling harder than you.
Right, leading to this state of hypervigilance, this constant unease.
And maybe the most insidious part, the cruel irony.
Yeah.
Despite all that effort, all the 5 a.m. alarms, the side hustles,
There was still that persistent nagging feeling of never doing enough.
no matter how many hours you put in, how many projects you juggled,
Okay.
it wasn't sufficient. The goalposts just kept moving.
Which, ironically, often led people to grind even harder, trapping them in this vicious cycle.
Feeling inadequate, so you hustle more, which leads to more burnout.
Precisely. And this personal toll, as our research really underscores, it speaks directly to how unsustainable the whole model was.
It just couldn't last.
When people are consistently pushing beyond their physical, emotional, mental limits and being praised for it, it's not a question of if they'll break, but when.
The structure itself demanded constant output without real recovery.
Exactly. No genuine breaks. It made it fundamentally unviable for most people in the long run. And this realization, it didn't necessarily hit everyone like a lightning bolt.
It was slower for many.
Yeah, often a quiet internal thing, a slow buildup of exhaustion, disillusionment. Starting long before the public backlash really kicked in, the body and mind just couldn't keep pace indefinitely.
And it was exactly those simmering negative experiences, that quiet reckoning, that really set the stage for the dramatic shift we've seen.
The pressure cooker was definitely building.
Yeah. The stage was being set for this huge reevaluation of work, success, what a healthy life even looks like, and then the catalyst arrived, this massive external force.
The pandemic, yeah. The Great Reset, as we're kind of framing it here, that collective reevaluation, it was absolutely spurred by this external force that forced immediate universal change.
Suddenly, almost overnight, billions of people are stuck at home.
Not by choice. An unprecedented forced pause from normal life. And that abrupt halt to the daily grind. It forced this profound collective introspection.
On really fundamental things.
Totally, not just careers, but the fragility of life, the importance of connection, what actually matters beyond the productivity race, the precariousness of all our old structures.
It's this unexpected, though obviously difficult chance for everyone to just reflect.
Collectively, yeah.
And it's incredible how fast perspectives shifted on work itself during that time, isn't it?
Phenomenal. The pandemic just brutally highlighted the fragility of those traditional structures.
The rigid 9 to 5, the commute.
The soul-crushing commute, yeah, the reliance on physical offices, the ingrained hierarchies. It suddenly became painfully clear that these things we thought were solid, immutable, they weren't that robust.
Our sources talk about supply chain chaos.
Yeah.
The inability to gather, the forced scramble to digital. It exposed how delicate the whole system was.
And with that came this deep, collective introspection, people asking really big questions.
Like, what really matters beyond just working all the time?
Is my identity just my job title? Is there more to life than the next promotion?
It was a huge philosophical shift for millions, sparked by necessity, but it felt like it led to real clarity for many.
And in that stark new context, the whole illusion of hustle culture, it just started to shatter rapidly.
All that constant pushing, the glorification of being exhausted.
It suddenly looked unsustainable, toxic even, frankly absurd when people were facing actual existential threats.
The appeal just vanished.
Completely. The allure of being always on just evaporated when the world paused. When people saw colleagues, loved ones getting sick, when their own mental health started fraying under the pressure of work from home plus global anxiety.
The glamour was gone, replaced by this clear-eyed view of the damage it caused.
It stopped being aspirational. It became a warning sign. This is what happens when well-being gets sacrificed for endless productivity.
And as that illusion shattered, we started seeing these really powerful counter-movements emerge. New norms pushing back against the old ways.
Definitely. And one of the most talked about ones, a term that just exploded, was quiet quitting.
Right, which isn't actually about quitting your job, is it?
No, not at all. As our sources explain it, it's really this phenomenon where employees make a conscious choice to do just the bare minimum required for their role.
Fulfilling the duties, but nothing extra.
Exactly. executing responsibilities without that extra effort, without the enthusiasm for going above and beyond that was expected before. It's a deliberate act of setting boundaries.
Like saying, this is my job description, I'll do that, but no more. Especially not at the expense of my life.
Precisely. It was like this silent rebellion, a widespread withdrawal of that discretionary effort that hustle culture relied on. And it wasn't necessarily laziness, it was self-preservation, reclaiming agency.
And what's fascinating is how quickly setting boundaries went from being this niche idea
Right. Stuck in self-help books or therapy sessions.
to being widely embraced, celebrated even.
Suddenly, phrases like protecting your peace, prioritizing mental health, they became mainstream. It flipped completely. What might have been seen as uncommitted before.
Now gets framed as self-respect, emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Vital well-being. Our sources even point to a shift in corporate talk, with companies at least paying lip service to employee well-being much more.
So saying no to late-night emails, declining extra projects, not responding after hours, that became okay.
Even encouraged by some.
Yeah.
As a vital act of self-preservation, it reflects this deep collective understanding that our worth isn't just tied to how productive or available we are.
And then, of course, remote work, which started as pure necessity, right? Businesses just trying to survive lockdowns.
A desperate scramble to keep things going.
But almost instantly, for so many people, it turned into this really desirable lifestyle choice. It sparked this mass rethinking of the office.
It wasn't just convenience. It fundamentally decoupled work from the traditional office grind. The rigid schedules, the commute.
Oh God, the commute suddenly seemed like such a waste.
A total relic. Remote work gave people this unprecedented autonomy over their time. It encouraged more flexible, individual ways of managing energy.
Our sources really highlight how that's reshaped cities, challenged the whole idea of a central workplace, impacting everything from real estate to local shops.
So this whole cumulative shift, the pandemic forcing reflection, then counter movements like quiet quitting, remote work becoming the norm. It led to what people are calling the cancellation of hustle culture.
But that had vanished overnight.
No, but it definitely lost its social approval, its prestige. You started seeing influential people, even big names who maybe promoted hustle before.
Suddenly talking about slowing down, prioritizing well-being.
Exactly. Openly embracing balance. It wasn't just anecdotal, it signaled this big shift in perception, a collective sigh of relief almost that the pressure was lifting.
The narrative just flipped. What was dedication before now started looking suspicious,
Yeah.
maybe even damaging.
Yeah, potentially irresponsible.
And that's when you started hearing phrases like rest is productive everywhere. It became the new mantra, almost the anti-mantra to sleep is for the weak.
Totally. Content promoting genuine rest, self-care, mindfulness, overall well-being. It just gained massive traction across all platforms.
There's a direct challenge to that old toxic mentality.
And it wasn't just about taking a nap. It highlighted that real, sustainable productivity, deep creativity, long-term innovation, they don't come from endless grinding.
They come from renewal, clarity, actual recovery.
Exactly. It became super clear that pushing yourself to exhaustion ultimately tanks the quality of your work, stifles creativity, jeopardizes your ability to keep going, making the whole hustle model completely counterproductive in the long run.
Our sources really underline that realization as a critical turning point. How we started seeing the link between effort and output differently.
So yeah, metaphorically speaking, hustle culture didn't just get questioned, it kind of got canceled. Stripped of its old approval, its prestige.
The narrative flipped hard. What used to be dedication now looked potentially damaging, irresponsible even.
And that widespread public rejection born from burnout and that global reset moment really cemented its decline. It opened the door for totally new philosophies to come in and gain ground, offering different paths, often completely opposite paths, to a good life.
And that huge shift, that kind of cultural vacuum left as hustle culture waned. It leads us straight to the question that's all over the place now.
If hustle's out, what's in?
Exactly. If it's been canceled, what on earth is replacing it? And we're seeing this significant rise, especially online, in what people are calling the soft life.
Ah, yes, the soft life. It really is the main alternative emerging, isn't it? And it couldn't be more different from the hustle mindset.
Polar opposites.
Its core idea is prioritizing peace, not pressure. It's a very deliberate, conscious pivot, focusing on wellness, relationships, finding actual joy, cultivating inner calm.
As the real measures of a life well lived.
Exactly. Instead of just external stuff like money or job titles, it's a philosophy that champions ease, comfort, tranquility over constant striving and struggle.
Our sources describe it as rejecting the idea that life has to be this constant uphill battle.
Yeah, opting instead for a path of more gentle living, intentional contentment.
Right. So if hustle culture was kind of get rich or die trying,
The soft life is definitely live well and feel good. It's a total reorientation of priorities.
and what does that look like in practice beyond the hashtag?
Well, instead of that jarring 5 a.m. alarm, maybe it's slow mornings, sipping coffee quietly, easing into the day, savoring moments,
Not rushing.
not rushing, engaging in passion projects just because you love them, not because they need to be monetized or look good on LinkedIn.
Finding joy in the process itself.
Totally. And crucially, it's about confidently saying no. Saying no to toxic work energy, to demands that mess with your well-being, to opportunities that just don't align with that desire for peace.
So setting boundaries not just defensively, but proactively.
Exactly. As an active choice to protect your inner peace, your personal freedom, which is such a stark contrast to the boundaryless world of hustle culture.
Okay, but here's where it gets tricky, right? Here's the twist, and it's a question our source material raises too.
Yeah, the critical thinking part.
Is the soft life a real deep mindset shift that's genuinely changing how people live? Or is it just a new aesthetic?
Like hustle culture before it, just curated for consumption.
Exactly. This is where we really need to be discerning.
Mm-hmm.
Are people actually slowing down, prioritizing well-being in a profound, lasting way?
Mm.
Are they really disengaging from the rat race meaningfully?
Or are they just, flexing a different kind of lifestyle on social media, creating this image of calm, ease, effortless balance that might not be their reality?
We've all seen the pictures, right? The perfect brunch tables, the serene walks in sun-drenched parks, the minimalist meditation corners.
All presented as the soft life, but is it lived experience? Or is it just another aspirational ideal being sold to us, commodifying rest and peace?
That's such a critical point, because you see these super polished visuals and you have to wonder, is it just another type of performative living?
Where the pressure shifts. Not pressure to hustle, but pressure to look soft, relaxed, effortlessly balanced.
Is it a new kind of aspirational trap, where instead of comparing yourself to the person pulling the all-nighter, now you compare yourself to the person with the seemingly perfect life of leisure?
And as you, the listener, think about your own feeds, your own circles, have you noticed that performative side? Are people truly shifting internally, or are some just swapping one kind of social pressure for another?
The pressure to look productive becomes the pressure to look serene.
It's a really key distinction, because if it is just an aesthetic, it risks becoming another source of feeling inadequate, ironically, especially for people who can't afford the time or money to project that image.
Which leads to an even deeper question, maybe a more provocative one, that our sources pushed us towards.
Which is?
Is there a potential danger in going too soft? We have to ask this, right? To avoid just blindly celebrating the new trend.
Absolutely. The desire for peace, comfort, less pressure, totally understandable, commendable even after the hustle years. But what if we consistently avoid challenge, avoid discomfort altogether?
If the pendulum swings too far the other way, away from any kind of struggle or effort, what are the unintended consequences then?
Could it lead to stagnation? If you never push yourself, if you always shy away from things that feel hard, even if it's a good kind of hard?
Could you actually hold back your own personal growth? What about the lessons you only learn by overcoming difficulties?
What about missing opportunities that only pop up when you step outside your comfort zone? When you take on something challenging that might not feel soft right now, but could lead to huge long-term rewards or development?
Our sources really make you think about whether real growth often needs a bit of discomfort, a willingness to stretch beyond what feels easy.
It really raises the possibility that escaping one trap, the burnout of hustle culture, could accidentally lead you into another one.
A trap of complacency.
Yeah, where maybe the fear of discomfort or just the appeal of everything feeling easy stops you from developing meaningfully, stops you from learning new skills or pursuing really ambitious, deeply fulfilling goals.
It's a crucial consideration. How do you find that genuine balance without sacrificing growth or falling into a different kind of limiting mindset?
The ideal isn't just swapping one extreme for another. It's about finding a path that allows for both flourishing and well-being.
Distinguishing between real self-care that refuels you for purposeful action.
And a kind of avoidance that keeps you stuck. keeps you from reaching your potential.
So, okay, given this whole changing landscape, these powerful, sometimes conflicting ideas swirling around, how do we navigate it as individuals? How do we find our own intentional path?
Well, first things first, let's just state this clearly. Hustle culture absolutely needed to be challenged.
Without a doubt.
Its flaws, its unsustainability, the damage to mental and physical health, the way it tied self-worth only to productivity. It just wasn't working for most people.
So the shift away from those extremes, that's positive. It's progress towards healthier work-life integration, a broader definition of success.
Progress, not perfection. Right.
Exactly.
And the really critical thing here, as our sources keep emphasizing, is balance. We have got to get clear on the difference between genuine, productive rest and just complacency.
Productive rest isn't laziness.
Not at all. It's strategic. It's essential for peak performance, for well-being. It's about recovery, rejuvenation. It actually fosters creativity by letting your mind process, synthesize, integrate things. It prepares you for focused effort again.
Whereas complacency is
Stagnation. Yeah, a lack of effort, a comfortable inertia that actually stops you from moving forward or growing. It's like the difference between charging your batteries for a big trip and just deciding not to take the trip at all.
finding that middle ground, that nuance seems absolutely key. We needed to avoid the extremes.
The burnout of hustle or the potential pitfalls of going too soft.
We want to escape the exhaustion, the mental drain of constant hustling. But we also don't want to slip into underachievement or feel unfulfilled because we never pushed ourselves.
It's about understanding that well-being isn't separate from your ambitions. It's woven into them. The goal is to truly thrive.
Not just survive the grind or just exist comfortably without growing. It's about flourishing.
And this is where that idea intentional movement really comes into focus, something our sources mentioned a lot.
The goal isn't just choosing, hustle or drift.
Exactly. It's not about rigidly picking one extreme or the other. It's about making deliberate, conscious choices, moving with intention.
Being really mindful of why you're working, what you're prioritizing.
Yes. And asking, how do my efforts actually align with my core values, with my overall well-being? It's about lining up your actions with your deeper purpose, not just reacting to external pressures or chasing the latest trend.
So moving with intention means constantly checking in with yourself, asking those questions. Does this effort serve my real purpose, my values? Or is it just pressure?
Is this my goal or someone else's expectation?
It's about consciously deciding when to push hard, when to rest deeply, when maybe to pivot completely based on your internal compass.
Not just external demands or social media trends or what your boss wants. It's about actively designing your life, shaping it, not just reacting.
Crafting your own story, one that feels authentic, sustainable, fulfilling to you.
Which brings us to some practical wisdom, right? Synthesizing the best bits from both sides. We need the ability to work hard and live smart.
There's nothing wrong with effort itself.
Absolutely not. Effort, ambition, the drive to create something meaningful, those are good things. But we also have to live smart. That means fiercely prioritizing health, actively nurturing relationships, protecting our well-being.
Understanding these aren't things you sacrifice for work.
No, they're the foundation. The foundation for sustainable success, for genuine happiness. A healthy person with strong connections is way more likely to achieve lasting success than someone always near burnout.
It's not work or life. It's integrating work into a well-lived life.
And the absolute key to making all this work, the bedrock of sustainable success in this new era, it's deep self-awareness.
This constant feedback loop. Checking in with yourself while you're pursuing goals.
Whatever those goals are, asking, am I feeling genuinely energized by this, or am I just depleted all the time?
Is this motivation internal, or am I just going through the motions because I feel I should?
Is the pursuit itself making my life richer, helping me grow? Or is it slowly chipping away at my happiness, my health, my relationships?
That constant, honest self-check. It makes sure your drive doesn't undermine everything else.
It ensures the journey feels as rewarding, as sustainable, as fulfilling as wherever you're headed. And that you're always aligned with what truly matters to you. It's the ultimate internal boundary setter.
So bringing it all back, is hustle culture dead?
Well, maybe not completely buried, but it's definitely undergone a massive transformation. What seems undeniably clear from our deep dive today is that collectively we're trying to write a new story, a healthier story of success.
A more nuanced one.
Yeah, one that isn't just about the external stuff, how much you produce, how much you earn, but about internal well-being, genuine fulfillment, finding a sustainable rhythm for a life truly lived.
And that news story, the one that defines success on your own terms, well, that's ultimately yours to write.
Absolutely. Whether you find yourself grinding with purpose right now or gliding with ease or maybe growing through some intentional challenge.
The important thing is making sure you're doing it on your own terms. Driven by your values, not just reacting to external noise, it's about owning your path.
And maybe the final thought, the real lasting question for you, the listener, as you navigate all this, it goes beyond just choosing hustle or soft.
What is it?
How do you actually define success for yourself now that those old traditional metrics are shifting so much?
Mhm.
What personal values, whether it's peace or impact or connection or growth or something else entirely, what values will genuinely guide your unique definition of a fulfilling, balanced life? Especially when those external pressures are still out there, subtly nudging you one way or the other.
So it's not about picking a side in the debate.
No, it's about designing your own authentic, sustainable relationship with work, with ambition, and with life itself.
Think deeper. Live better. Thanks for diving deep with us today.